Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. Thank you very much for joining our lunchtime webinar series here at Densify. My name is Andy Walton. I am the VP of Technical Sales, your usual host for these events. And today I'm joined by a new victim. His name is Dr. Henry Juergens. He's our SVP of Product Management, among other things. How's it going today, Henry?
It is going awesome.
That's great. Great to have you on with me and to talk to us or talk to the audience today about enabling collaborative cloud cost optimization, leveraging Slack and Microsoft Teams. Today, our demo is going to focus around Slack. So just before we get started, if you've got questions, please post them in the GoToWebinar questions window. And I will save some time at the end of this session to address those questions. And if you're asking about the recording, we will make that available for the entire audience for next week sometime. So Henry, hopefully on your side, I know I'm in the office, as you can see. I don't normally have a giant Densify wallpaper behind me at home. I think you're at the home office, so hopefully you've got the family. It's turned off the Facebook and the Instagram and the Netflix and all that good stuff.
I have delivered the message. We'll see if they listen to it.
Good stuff. Okay, well, let's get going. Let me set the stage with one slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Henry for a little bit deeper dive into the technology themselves. But let's talk a little bit about the issues and the whole concept of collaboration and making sure that we go from the stage of seeing recommendations for optimization in the public cloud and actually delivering on that promise. And we're going to talk a little bit about the roles and responsibilities here. So we've got application owners and engineering and operations that are typically mainly focused on the stability, performance of the applications themselves, and ensuring that they have control and the ability to actually automate. If we give someone 500 recommendations, they need to be able to put those into play and integrate that into their CI/CD frameworks. The other side of the coin is the fact there's healthy tension between these groups and the IT finance group, who don't have direct access into actually lowering costs. They are very interested in cost management. So you've got two different groups really that are focused on completely kind of somewhat competing priorities. And of course, from the leadership perspective, they care about all of it. They want to see agile and reliable applications, things that are working and delivering the right performance at the right service levels at the right price. So what we see is almost a circular kind of collaboration between these groups. And there's some key things to ensure right off the bat. So the recommendations themselves have to be reliable, and they have to be, number one, address the performance of those instances and the applications running in the public cloud. For the application owners, they need to see the visibility and control. So they need to see what those recommendations are and have control over what those recommendations are going to do. The recommendations themselves have to be informed, and they have to be able to trust them. So it's not enough to just say, well, I've got a recommendation that's going to save you $30 a month. They need to be able to drill in. If you're going to change any of the framework on which those applications are running, they better know exactly what it's going to do, what's happening right now before and what's happening after the fact. And then there has to be an ability to actually take those recommendations and approve them through ITSM framework, or as we're going to show today, through a collaboration tool like Slack. And if these things don't happen, all four of these things, then this circular approval cycle will stop right at the top. If we don't have these things happening, then the approvals aren't going to be granted and the optimization is not going to occur. When it does happen, we'll now ensure that the resources that are being delivered are cost appropriate, that they're getting the right resource at the right price at the right time. And then from a longer term perspective, looking not just at what's running, say, on an on-demand perspective, but leveraging the reserved instances that might be running in AWS as an example, leveraging the savings plan and making sure that anything that you're committing to from a 1 or 3 year perspective is optimized from a long term. If you're going to lock in, better make sure you're locking in on the right stuff. And when this happens, then we have collaboration between these groups, the application owners, the engineering, the finance group, and leadership will all have ownership in lowering the cloud bill and ensure that we're still delivering at the right price and the right priority. Anything to add to this slide here, Henry?
No, I think you covered it really well.
Okay, good. In that case, why don't I have you talk a little bit more about the details of the integration themselves in terms of how do we actually make sure this happens and what's happening underneath the covers?
Cool. So we find when we engage with our customers that they really have this desire or need to disseminate the recommendations, the visibility that we provide from Densify. And we'll see that happens in different ways and often in multiple ways. Very commonly, there is a dissemination of that information into sort of a business intelligence platform that customers are using, whether that's a Tableau, a Looker, a Domo. And then if you get to the next level of collaboration, we have a lot of companies saying, well, they don't want everybody that needs to know about our recommendations or needs to approve them or be part of the decision process to action them, as Andy was just mentioning in that slide about collaboration before. They're starting to use platforms like Teams or Slack, which I'll demo today, and that's based on a subscription framework and a notification framework that's all API enabled that Densify has built. And that's a common interaction in order to see how do you get through that information and do things like approvals. We've got other companies that get to the point of saying, well, I really need to track this all based on creating tickets and change management. So we have integration to things like ServiceNow or Jira or Cherwell. And then you start getting even more advanced where companies are saying, hey, I want to start automating. You could actually click the next time as well, Andy. And whether they're using infrastructure as code, whether they have some type of CI/CD or development pipeline. We have different ways that our customers do this. And again, via all the APIs we have, via integrations into infrastructure as code templates, you can get as mature or as far as doing everything in an automated fashion. And as we were mentioning earlier, we're going to focus today on how does a collaboration platform, which is integrating based on our subscription APIs, notification APIs, all focus on the Slack in the demo, but the enablement with these APIs would be able to deal with things like Microsoft Teams or WebEx Teams or whatever management messaging platform a company would be using. And we've looked at a number with our customers to date. So if we go to the next slide.
Yeah,
go ahead. I wanted to give a bit of a perspective of the demo. You're going to see the Slack application, but it's actually fitting into a bigger picture, with the concept being, we collect the data from different platforms, whether it's public cloud, on-prem or container environments. Then we also can get data from ticketing systems or ITSM systems that would add some knowledge or information about, are there incidents that are already open or critical incidents for the types of services or systems that we're analyzing. And then when we analyze and produce recommendations, we can actually surface those in different ways. And today we're going to focus on how that gets surfaced through an application we created that's a plugin for Slack. And it's just kind of a reference application that uses our APIs. And through this interface, I'm going to demonstrate you can do things like see what's going on for the stuff that I'm interested in as a owner of different applications. I can review the recommendations to optimize, and I can go as far as automating or approving things, or even saying, well, I don't want you to tell me about that for the next month. And once I do that, that can go as far as even creating a change ticket in something like ServiceNow, if that's required by a company. And if it's a manual type of ticket, because we do have customers saying certain things, like an example, a terminate. I'm not going to let automation terminate something. I want to have some oversight in that. That can go through an already existing process that's in place for doing those types of manual changes. If automation is appropriate and applicable for the type of service that's being interacted with and optimized, then we've got multiple ways of how we can trigger that automated change. And then it, through integration to orchestration systems or infrastructure as code, the automation happens. We have the ability in the next bit of the flow that if desired, we can even get the status of how did that happen? Was it successful or not? And then we could even pump that right back in the last step into Jira or ServiceNow or whatever your ITSM ticketing system is to make sure that it's all done under full change control. So that's kind of an overview. So you have a bit of a picture of how the integration to a messaging platform like Slack fits into the bigger picture. So time for the demo.
Time for the demo. All right, let me flip this over to your side here, and we'll make you the presenter.
Okay, and I need to get the right screen shared here. Okay, if I've done this correctly, you should be seeing a Slack window in the center of a blue universe.
I see it.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, this is a reference application that we've created that's, think of it as an app or a plugin that you could put into Slack. We can do similar things in terms of that subscription and notification API. And essentially, this is an interface that's interacting with those APIs. So the concept here is I have been told by Andy, hey, you should really check out this Densify recommendations app. I add it into my workspace in Slack, and I see, oh, in 4 steps, I'm able to configure exactly what I'm interested in getting back from Densify. And now we get to see whether my girls are using the web streaming videos or not based on how fast this reacts. So I'm going in and I'm doing, step 1. I want to configure exactly what type of services I'm interested in. So right now we've hooked this up to our demo environment, which has a bunch of, it's focused on AWS at the moment. So there's 3 accounts I have in that environment. I could say I'm only interested in certain regions or service types or operational environments, owners, applications. I'm actually going to quickly look at, I'm only interested in certain service types. I'm going to pick, EC2 type of instances in AWS, the RDS service for databases and scale groups. So I'm not going to focus in on the spot right now, and then I'm going to submit that. And it's basically saying, okay, I have, narrowed down a little bit the scope of things that I want information on. And just from a time perspective, I know I own, a couple of applications from our mobile division. So I'm just going to go in and literally search for apps that have the word or contain mobile in it. I'm going to submit that. There was a number here saying there was 77 services, 777 services. Now it's down to 14, feels about right. I'm just going to double check to see what it's matched to. Okay, there's my mobile applications. I've got my dev version and I've got my production version. So I'm feeling pretty good. I've narrowed down to what I am interested in as an owner of these apps. So I'm going to go back and then I'm going to jump in and actually configure, well, I only want to see certain types of recommendations. So I'm going to press the configure there. It will go back and render the screen.
In a moment.
In a moment. This is the limits of internet with working.
I told you kids to turn off that Netflix. There we go.
Exactly. I swear I did. Yep. Okay. So now I get to the screen where I'm doing the configuration, more about the subscription. I'm going to subscribe to certain types of data. I'm basically saying I've, hold on, that's weird. Let's click that again. Yes, you gotta love these demos where it starts to behave in a wonky fashion.
Live without a net.
Page the screen. There, now that's where I want to be. Okay, So now I'm at the screen that's basically saying, here's the details about the types of recommendations I'm interested in. So I could go and configure recommendation type. So I can look at that quickly. It's got a list of a number of things in terms of upsize, downsizing, modernizing, upscale. These are different types of things we can do. For now, I'm just going to leave that, so I'll see all types of recommendations we make in every classification. So I'll actually just cancel that out. I am interested in making sure that the effort for making these changes are things that are easy for me to do. I don't want to start at the moment looking at things that are, a medium or higher effort level. So I'm just going to get down to what is the lowest level things to handle.
And just to jump in with that, Henry,
Yep.
I think the effort level is important because of the fact that what a software will do is it goes through the recommendations. It will look for things, if we're making a recommendation to move from, say, a CPU optimized to a general purpose or memory optimized, it says, is there differences in the hypervisors or differences in, say, storage or the network? Because changing those things might have an effect on the level of automation required to actually flip between those instances. And so the software is actually well aware of that. Given the fact we know about the catalog, we know about those differences automatically as part of the recommendation engine.
Thank you. That's important information. So, and then I'm just going to jump straight to that concept of the incident status. So this is information that can be pulled in from an ITSM system like ServiceNow. And we've just kind of simplified it to say, are there open issues? Are there critical open issues? And I only want to see things where there's no open incidents, no open issues, so that I'm assuming it's okay to make changes based on the recommended optimization. And that's actually got me down to 5 of those 14 components in my mobile apps. So I'll go back to that main screen. And now I'm at the point of saying, okay, well, when do I want to receive these messages? So I can configure this. It could be every day of the week, select an hour. Well, for me, I've got Slack on my phone. So when I get up in the morning and have my coffee, I probably can't react to it every day of the week. Just, let me know Mondays and Wednesdays. So I can submit that. It'll tell me, that I've made that change. It will tell me. And for the moment, I'll just turn that on. This is the fun of being able or doing demos in an environment. So let's assume there's something going on weird with my demo. And I'll just go straight to I want those, it's finally configured. Just took a little while there. And at the point it's configured, you can see I could turn on automatic messages, which would send me that data, on those days, on the Wednesday and Monday mornings as I've configured it. And so I kind of turn it on. As I mentioned, I'll have to go complain to my girls for using my internet connection. There, finally, it reacted, showing up Monday and Wednesday at 7. But what I want to do is the interactive thing. So I just want to know, based on the latest analytics, what is Densify telling me now? So I just want to interactively kind of pull that data. I press the get recommendations now. Through the integration, it's going through the APIs, the subscription APIs, pulling that information back, and we will be patient.
And the nice thing about this whole setup is obviously when you set these up, it's only required really to do it once unless you're going to modify it. So some people would probably want to do it and say, I just want to see the risky ones, the upsize recommendations where I need more services. Whereas someone else might say, well, I care about the cost savings. So set it up once and then you forget it and it's automatically going to come through like now.
Yes, exactly. So you can see that when the message arrived, it had that little, a new message was published. And what we do is we have a consistent way of organizing this information based on what I wanted to see, the type of recommendations. It's showing me that, in my mobile dev app, there's 3 components that have a saving opportunity. And in the production app, there's 2 components that have a savings opportunity. I just want to go straight into the details on that mobile app. So when I press show details, it now tells me I've got an EC2 instance, gives me the name, the resource ID, saying, you know, that, oh, there's a recommendation to terminate that. There's another EC2 instance where it's saying, hey, you could downsize that and actually switch it to an optimal family, that, you know, a C4 is not the optimal family, an memory optimized rather than a compute optimized, if I've got this right, would be better matched to its the nature of its personality and utilization curves. And then the last one is an ASG, where it's a much more complex type of recommendation, where we're saying, you know, multiple things, you know, change to a newer generation and type of instance. Also, you could change the minimum sizing for to scale from a min of 8 down to 4, and you actually should increase the max group size from 12 to 15. So it's complex. I can actually go in and, you know, as I mentioned, create a ticket. So the policy in this environment says, you know, a ticket needs to be created to do ASG type changes because they're complex. I can get additional details. So I'm going to actually ask to go request a report and pull it back. And it tells me that right now it's going and generating a report about that ASG. While it's doing that, that was actually fairly quick. So I'll just open up that report. And this gives, call it a summary or an artifact that says everything you want to know about that ASG. It tells you what's the optimization benefits, including estimated monthly savings. It's got a lot of our science in the background telling you here's what the before a recommendation and after the recommendation in terms of scaling and utilization effects. It's got memory there, tells you all about the metadata and tags that are on that instance. So I'll just keep going down, lots of science to make someone comfortable that, yeah, I think I would want to do this, including the effort, the rules we checked, and at the end, a cost impact summary. So, you know, I could say, hey, that actually looks really good. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a ticket, have that signal so that this is going to be dealt with. So a ticket's going to be created. Let's pretend we're using ServiceNow. And for some of the other items, you know, for that terminate, I could basically say, hey, you know what? I know that's doing some type of work. It's just, you know, has been quiet a little bit. So please don't bother me about that tomorrow. So I'm going to suppress that notification. It, you know, tells me that it's been suppressed so that I'm not going to be bothered with it. And then for the next one, it's saying, hey, based on policy, I trust the science. I'm just going to go in and tell it to approve the automation, which can then work through you know, whatever the orchestration or development pipeline that you have for making these types of changes. So that kind of wraps up the demo, and I will hand it back to Andy.
Perfect. Thanks, Henry. And I think that it's interesting, you know, when we have the evidence there as you pulled open that that report, that is in a lot of ways a big differentiator for us because of the fact that we need to be able to show those application owners and the application owner teams exactly what the difference is in that effort level. Actually detailed a few things in there around the hypervisor type, differences in the IOPS between the instances, and just that level of information that someone will need to know before they actually go forward with an approval process. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight while I'm waiting for additional questions. We're right near the end, so if you have any questions, please send them through the GoToWebinar question and answer interface there, and I will take those in just a moment. For those of you that are interested and want to find out more, just go to densify.com and click on Start My Trial. There's various buttons and places where you can go. So you just simply fill out the information. We will contact you. We will set up an instance for you, your own custom URL, your own credentials. You log in, you essentially use the agentless process for whatever environment that you're actually collecting from, any of the public clouds or Kubernetes or VMware, and then basically just set it up. And the whole process is typically around 15 minutes once we have your instance stood up, and then you'll typically see data in your environment later that day or the next day, depending on the timing. And it's really quite simple to get a quick idea of exactly what does the opportunity look like for your own public cloud environment, or private cloud as it were for VMware. So Henry, I'm going to fire a few questions at you as well. So this person, it looks like they might not have seen the first slide, just saying, can I get this kind of information in a reporting engine, a BI tooling? So I think you mentioned a few of them at one of the first slides there. So some of the,
so
I guess if you're not using collaboration.
Yep, absolutely, yes. And the same APIs we use here, as well as additional APIs and data export options exist. And that's often what we do, is we move that information to BI platforms.
Yeah, we do have some customers using things like Power BI. I think Looker is another one. Basically any kind of system. Tableau, I think you mentioned at the start as well.
Yep.
One other question here. So I've built my own custom portal. You mentioned the API. Are all your recommendations fully available through an API?
Yes.
And I guess we have all that information actually. So if we go to the Densify website, you can actually see a full documentation. It's broken down by users and by API, and you can actually dig in and have a look at any flavor of the documentation. You can test it out in your own trial using Postman, what have you. Another question, is the trial free? I can answer that question. The answer is yes. So we offer a standard 14-day free trial for qualified customers. You have to have a certain amount of infrastructure. Actually, we do have some trial requests that come through where someone might have 20 or 25 instances, or only spending like $20,000 a month. That would in some ways be, it's not that we don't like you, it would be in a lot of ways just killing a fly with a shotgun. And you probably just don't have enough of a business issue for us to actually help you out with. But we have a lot of enterprise-sized customers where you've got some critical mass of scale or multiple clouds with VMware, and certainly you would see a lot of value from just the free trial process. 14 days is the standard.